Back on the Exit 52 podcast. It is Thursday night, October 10th. My name is Jake Louque. We're brought to you, as always, by Jimmy's Famous Seafood. I'm joined by Spencer Nathaniel Schultz. How are we doing tonight?
Doing quite well. Fired up for this Thursday night matchup. Was looking to see the Seahawks maybe provide a little bit more valiant effort offensively. We'll see what they can do in the second half. Really fired up for this game. Exciting one. I know a lot of folks are excited. ESPN has really worked a frenzy out of this game, and I have a lot of takes about that. But I'm excited. Perfect kind of weather that we like. Playing some golf on Saturday. And, man, Commanders, Ravens, Battle of the Beltway.
You catch these Northern Lights?
I haven't seen any of it at all, actually, wherever I've been. I was in Hampstead for a little while, and we didn't see anything up there, and then just drove home a little bit earlier. So
too bad. That would have been the perfect spot. There's no light pollution up there.
Yeah, we didn't see anything when we looked. It was weird.
I hate that. Well, yeah, I mean, what a sight. Amazing. Sky was turned purple. You know, is that a sign? Is that a sign that Uncle Todd, tucking the Denny's menu into the front pants there, is going to lead the boys to victory in this installment of the Battle of the Beltway? Ravens playing the Commanders. We get this once every 4 years. Maybe a little bit more frequently now that the schedule has changed. But as of right now, I believe the last time these two teams met in the regular season was in 2020 when the Ravens went down there. Little belt to ass action there with a long Lamar Jackson touchdown run. I think actually the late Dwayne Haskins started for the Commanders in that one. Rest in peace to him. And yeah, man, that's kind of a marker of time there that we don't get these games very often, and when we do, they always seem to be fun ones between these two teams. The Commanders have actually gotten the better of the Ravens a couple of times in the last decade or so. You think back to that Super Bowl season, RG3 gets injured. That was a tough loss that year. I think 2016, I think Mark Trestman might have given his pink slip after that one when Kirk Cousins came into Baltimore and got the W there. And then obviously, I mean, far be it for me not to mention the preseason last year when I was actually in the house down at FedEx Field, the hallowed grounds of FedEx Field, when the Commanders walked off the Ravens in that preseason game to snap the streak. Just an illustrious history between these two squads.
It is a fun one. The Ed Reed offensive scoreless game, I think it was, that forced fumble where he tips the ball to himself. That's one of his all-time highlights. Kirk Cousins coming in for RG3 and ripping the Ravens up was a weird one. You mentioned that Haskins one throughout COVID. They played some weird games. And, man, the first time that the Commanders have traveled up to Baltimore in quite some time. So I know a lot of folks are excited. The entire area, the DMV and Baltimore, which
I thought they were the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Baltimore and the DMV both fired up for this one. I think that a lot of the national pundits are fired up for this one. And just the whole football world, I think, is looking to this one a little bit as Jayden Daniels has become probably – I'd say the early story of 2024 is him and the Commanders starting 4-1, right? That's kind of the attention grabber. They're the worst to first kind of team that you look to every year. And Commanders fans really fired up. RG3 has been really fired up for him and has that tie to Baltimore as well. So a lot of fun stuff here. Dan Quinn, the head coach, and some fun things going on in Washington football-wise. They obviously – some people hate, we've talked about this ad nauseum. Some people hate this comparison. I've always said it. Dan Snyder to Peter Angelos and the Angelos family. I know that a lot of Orioles fans are happy that the Angelos family sold to David Rubenstein, and I know that a lot of Commanders fans are happy that Dan Snyder sold to Josh Harris. So I think there's a little simpatico and a lot of crossover there too. So storylines galore. The area obviously makes it geographically relevant, and the storylines make it fun.
Yeah, no, real air of renewal around this franchise, which I think is good to see. Their fans listen. Good friends with many Washington fans. They, things start to go their way even a little bit, and they can get a little out of pocket, but it's all in good fun. And it's obviously different conferences, so excited for them. I was no fan of Dan Snyder. I think it's a good thing when shitty people are expelled from the NFL. So I'll root for that every time. Seems like Josh Harris is doing a good job hiring good people like Adam Peters and Dan Quinn and just kind of getting out of the way. And then obviously Jayden Daniels, I mean, shit, you talk about him being the story of the regular season. I mean, we're really not talking about Caleb Williams too much at all right now. And he's off to a solid start after kind of a rocky first couple of games there. But, man, you got to feel pretty good about being a Commies fan because, like PFT commentator talks about, it's just all about getting a quarterback. And they've taking their bites at the apple, taking their swings of the axe, and they've never gotten a kid like this. And it's, it's exciting for them. And, maybe they're, mouths are writing checks that their wallet can't cash. I guess we'll see about that. We'll see with our predictions. But overall, we've just never really had the juice like this going into one of these types of games. Like, I remember that 2020, obviously it was COVID, but none of us were talking about, oh man, got to get down to FedEx Field and see that one. And obviously like the RG3 year, that was a big one, but that was also in DC. And then we talked about that weird Cousins loss. I just cannot recall any type of juice where it's like, hey, let's hop in the van together and make the trip up or trip down. It seems like a lot of Washington people excited to make the trip up and enjoy M&T Bank Stadium and cheer on their team. So
it is. With that in mind, go to the bank. And I made my name for this evening on the live stream. Pack the bank, not the Parkway. Do not let them take the BW Parkway up and take over this stadium. I don't know. It feels like that might have already swung one way, but be loud, have fun, don't be a jerk, all that stuff the Ravens like to say. Fired up for it. And fired up to maybe see if you can get a rookie quarterback rattled. We'll get into the tape here in a little bit. We'll get into the injury report. Roquan Smith with one of my favorite quotes of the week, and he has not backed down. And he doesn't have these – it's not these cocky comments, but it's always he's the alpha, and he likes his guys, and he likes their chances, and more or less said that the Commanders are a good team, and they also haven't seen anything like the Ravens and like the Ravens defense. And I know people are kind of gawking at that comment, considering the Ravens had some trouble against really just Joe Burrow, and then the onside kick with the Cowboys, and the Cowboys moved the ball, and we broke that whole thing down. So I think folks have gone a little bit too haywire. The Ravens bring in Dean Pease as a senior advisor, and I think people are making maybe a little bit bigger of a fuss than that actually is. But I believe that Roquan Smith tells some truth, man. The Browns gave the Commies some trouble a little bit in that first half, and then I feel like Deshaun Watson in that game really just took the life out of that entire team. And the Browns offense is the worst offense pretty much in modern football through the first 5 weeks of the season, EPA wise, whatever you want to look at. They've been atrocious. And this comment made me laugh. Zamboni, what's the big deal? I pee too. He pees, you pee too. Dean pees. So I believe that the Ravens do present an interesting defensive strategy and an interesting defensive front as opposed to some of the other teams that the Commanders have faced. And Mike Florio actually brought up a really interesting point. I've really been trying this year to watch all of the previews a little bit, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. We do this a little later than most, Thursday evening. Most of these kind of happen today or yesterday. So I like to try to gather some thoughts and do some groupthink and steal some of their wise words. And Florio asked an interesting question of Chris Sims. He said, is this the point now, Chris, where you feel like there might be a little tape out on what the Commanders like to do? Chris said, yeah, I do. We'll see. We'll see if a team is going to give them trouble at some point. The Ravens could be that team, could not. We'll get into it a little bit, but I thought that was a really interesting perspective of, okay, you see this Commanders team, what they like to do. They're pretty consistent. I do think that it is a well-run offense. And like I said, we'll get into the tape in a little bit, but man, the Ravens front has guys like Adafe Owe, Trenton Simpson, Kyle Hamilton, some guys that are some apex predators out there. Roquan Smith, Matabike for an interior lineman is as explosive as it gets. And we saw that on that big sack late against the Bengals that we broke down. But I do think if it's loud, if it gets into dire straits, the Bengals, yes, they gave the Ravens trouble. The Bengals also gave the Commanders trouble defensively, and the Commanders were able to take advantage of them recently too. So I think it's an interesting matchup, and it does feel like the line is 6.5 points. The over-under is 51.5. So that means that Vegas, so to speak, while they do set lines to trap people more so than what they think is going to happen, they want to bait you to take your money. So I think that's a common misconception. Even on Pro Football Talk, they were like, Vegas thinks this, Vegas thinks this. And I think the perspective is Vegas wants to get you to do something. And to me, it feels like they want to get you to take the Commanders in this game. Maybe they're trapping me too. But to digress, the Lions, the Seahawks, the Dolphins last year, the 49ers, these big opponents, these big quarterbacks, these MVP candidates, the Ravens really did come to play against those guys. And their pride has to be a little hurt, right, defensively. But at the end of that game, we talked about it last week. We did Clipper City Barber Company plays of the week. Marlon Humphrey, Justin Matabike got buckets when they needed some guys to score defensively and get off the field and make plays. So again, another game where it feels like the Ravens have a lot to work on, but also made the plays to feel confident that they can build off of it as well.
Yeah, and I don't have the rookie quarterback record stat in front of me, but obviously that's been a big thing with John Harbaugh, is just punishing rookie quarterbacks. And, Jayden, I don't think necessarily looks like a rookie at this point, right? I mean, if you had to ask like who's in the MVP conversation right now, I think he'd be in it, right? So he's looking a little bit more pro ready than a lot of these schmucks that teams are running out there. This is not a Drake May situation. This is much, much, much different. But, we talked about that Bengals game with Cliff and the way that he runs this offense. We were having some Greg Roman flashbacks with the way they were having difficulty subbing guys in and getting the personnel packages right, and how that game-winning touchdown, they had 10 men on the field on offense. Like, a lot of that is going to be part and parcel with having a rookie quarterback out there and getting the communication correct. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see if that's an element of it. I think crowd noise, definitely, you'd hope that will be an element to it as well. If you're a Ravens fan, I think the place is going to be loud and proud and hopefully shutting things down. And it reminds me of something Kyler Murray said 2019, that home opener. It was, I think, his second start of his career. He was like, I played in some big games in my college career, obviously at Oklahoma. He's like, I have never been in an environment like that down the stretch where they were trying to like drive out of the end zone. I remember they got stopped on maybe a 4th down, and he was just like, yeah, that was a backbreaker. Like I've never experienced noise like that ever. So as much as we've kind of ragged on the crowd at the bank, that was obviously pre-COVID and everything, and now we're out of that. Maybe there's been issues since then, but I don't know. I think it could be a loud, raucous environment, and I'd hope as a Ravens fan that that'll play into it against the Commies.
I agree, and it was tough for Josh Allen and the Bills, right? That was a night game. It's a little different. I think the 1 p.m. crowd's a little more laissez-faire, a little more have a burger in the morning, eat your hot dog, walk into the game, and watch some football, go meet some folks at halftime, things like that. But like you said, rookie quarterback, you made the point. Doesn't feel like a rookie. And do you want to pull up the injury report you said you had? I want to take a look at the injury report here before we hop into everything. So on your screen, you can see for the Ravens, Rashad Bateman, Marlon Humphrey, Ronnie Stanley, all missing practice. Broderick Washington on Wednesday. All of those guys, except for Broderick Washington, returned in a limited capacity. So you're hopeful, especially Bateman and Stanley. Stanley maybe is a little bit of maintenance more so, someone that has obviously practiced so much, taken injuries, played so well this year. He is the number 1 rated pass protector in football, according to PFF, especially in true pass sets, meaning without play action or a screen, so a straight drop back. Charlie Kohler returns to practice as well. Rosengarten limited, a couple guys there. And the Commanders similarly banged up a little bit. Zach Ertz got some rest. Safety Tyler Owens did not practice. Brian Robinson with a knee did not practice on Wednesday or Thursday, which I did not realize until right this second, actually. Nick Allegretti, the former Chiefs guard who's been playing really well, did not practice, then limited with an ankle. Noah Brown limited. Cleveland Farrell limited. And then Austin Eckler limited, then practice. Emmanuel Forbes, the second-year player out of Mississippi State, the light corner. A lot of folks talked about Nate Wiggins in comparison with him. He's a full participant for the first time in a few weeks. Dante Fowler was sick. He is back into practice. So potentially without Brian Robinson, I'm not surprised if Marlon Humphrey doesn't play in this one. Would not be shocked, but he was limited. It is an ankle, and it's tough, right? Marlon, another player. You think of Stanley. Stanley's had a little bit more injury history, so to speak, and the whole saga of his injury. But Marlon's also taken a beating too. He's no spring chicken anymore, which always feels weird considering his personality, and just feels weird to think he's as deep into his career as he is. He was such a young guy coming in and is so full of life. So you don't think of him as being, what is he now, 28 years old maybe?
Yeah, he's 28 or 20. I think he might turn
28 in July.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, he is kind of getting up there at this point. I mean, especially, you look at him coming out of college, such a physical player, right? And like it shouldn't be that shocking that the wear and tear accumulates like that, especially playing on those Nick Saban defenses, in big games for several years. I mean, that's essentially like having a mini pro career right before you get into the pros if you're an Alabama guy, especially during that era. So yeah, I mean, that's just another good point you make. The passage of time, as indicated by Marlon Humphrey's body wearing down, despite his mind still sharp as a tack.
Sharp as ever. Has the big pick last week, so hopefully Marlon's able to go. Going through the Commanders tape, a lot of folks, and there's so much made, Lamar Jackson, Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels says, I'm my own person. I love Zach Ertz saying it's kind of disrespectful for saying of Lamar Jackson, like comparing those two players. Lamar's been doing it for pretty much closer to 2 decades, or excuse me, closer to a decade than a half decade. I mean, in year 7, been so dominant for so long, and that there's no disrespect to Jayden. He loves what he's doing, but Jayden's his own person too. I love Zach Ertz's answer there. So when I was just running through tape, the player comparison that sticks out to me is Jalen Hurts a little bit more in terms of the offense they run, in terms of the touch on the deep passes and wanting to push the ball down the sideline. I think Hurts maybe targets the middle of the field a little more. Of course, Hurts is the 700-pound squat, 450-pound power clean deadlifter. They have the same move in the open field. It's just that one cut. It's that decisive
I had like
cut.
I had like a kind of a twitched up young Russell Wilson was sort of what I had seen a little bit. You know, it's a little quicker. Wilson a little bit more deliberate and moves with longer strides. You know, obviously we're talking about a decade ago at this point with him, but that's just sort of what I saw. But I like Hurts too.
Yeah, he's obviously way faster than Hurts, right? He's a much more explosive runner. Hurts is deceptively slow, and I think that Daniels is just fast. He's just very fast. I think Daniels is faster than Lamar Jackson is. I think he is the fastest quarterback in the NFL. It's Cliff Kingsbury, so they like to run a lot of RPO. They like to throw the ball. Cliff Kingsbury has always had a good run game. I love what they're doing with the backs. We'll get into the tape here a little bit. The thing that stuck out to me, and I'm not going to lie, I ended up seeing Bill Belichick posted pretty much the same thought, and then I thought about it more. He did Inside the NFL and did a full film breakdown. So I'll share some of the plays here that I saw from the Browns game that went through that. And what I had written down was that you have to get to Jayden Daniels' upfield shoulder. You absolutely can't let him do this. You can't let him get outside. I had written down that he has effectively ran to the right 36 times, 15 to the left. He has scrambled to the right 18 times, scrambled to the left 8 times, 47 pass attempts to the left, 70 to the right. He likes to roll right. And if you don't get that upfield shoulder, he is going to run past you. I think this is an Odafe Owe game. I think this is Kyle Hamilton, Trenton Simpson. I would love to see the Ravens keep Trenton Simpson on the field a little bit more in this one. Everything he does to torch teams pretty much comes when you don't attack the upfield shoulder, you let him get outside of you, and he makes you look silly. He will make you pay. If you attack inside, he's quick. He's a bigger dude than you realize. He's kind of like Lamar in that aspect. His trunk, his lower limbs are a little thicker when you look at the tape, and he will crush you. So much has been made of his kind of deep ball prowess. I'll pause there for a moment. So much been made of the deep ball prowess. He is a great deep ball thrower. Like I said, Jalen Hurts, I think, is a really nice deep ball thrower down the sideline too. So it feels like you have to try to make him go back upfield. It feels like he runs so that he can load himself so that he can throw on the run. He's so good throwing on the run. With that said, watching ESPN just lightly and seeing Twitter clips and things like that, I've seen the touchdowns. We watched the Bengals, the big throws he made against the Bengals. They've completed 4 passes of 20-plus air yards. I thought it was going to be – I went and checked, and you can filter an NFL Pro, which is such a good product, 20-plus air yard throws, and you can get the full playlist. Completed 4 passes of 20-plus air yards. It's not some befuddling amount, and a couple of them have been in those scramble scenarios. So getting to that upfield shoulder, trying to blitz like we just saw the Browns do in that clip. If you blitz coming to his right and lose to the outside, you're doing a disservice. I think you need a slow play. I want to see some DBs blitz. I like Trenton Simpson, who runs 4.4 and is fast as shit, to try to push him back to the left, make him run up the middle, make him throw up the middle. Don't let him reset, reload, and throw those darts over top. But I think a little bit more has been made of it because of the couple highlights than what it is. Will he take a couple shots in this one? Probably. Can he hit one? Absolutely. But that's not what has made them score so many points, in my opinion. That's not the driving force of this offense. I think that always gets overrated. You don't see quarterbacks complete more than 1 or 2 deep passes a game on average, even when they're really good at it. Even Mahomes in his prime, I think, was averaging like 2.2 deep completions a game, 20-plus yards in that first iteration of the Chiefs' dominance before the whole split safety, cover 2 narrative, all that stuff happened. So I think a big key is just simply attacking the upfield shoulder, making him have to square his shoulders away from the sideline, cut upfield. That makes him have to then reset again to throw. It's going to take a little longer. he can just cruise. He's fast. He can just cruise upfield. So I think that's a simple thing. Belichick touched on it. Check that out inside the NFL. And that to me is a huge key in this one.
Yeah, no, and it sounds to me when you mentioned DBs blitzing, I think about making this a big Kyle Hamilton chess piece game, staying with him on blitzing him, then staying with him upfield, using those long arms to disrupt passing lanes when he's trying to do that thing where he squirts out to the right and then tries to throw back or just throw upfield. I think that's exactly why you get a guy like this, is to be able to play in the modern NFL and corral these types of dudes. So if you're having issues with your pass rush, you talk about almost Oweh and how that hasn't been as much of a thing this year. I feel like a guy like Kyle Hamilton, and you also mentioned Trenton Simpson, just utilizing that modern speed, that modern player to stay step for step with Jayden Daniels.
And the Browns had chances in that last game. You see Zadarius Smith there, rolls off. There's going to be more of them coming. Tough catch by Terry McLaurin. He's just comfy there. You can see, again, he just wants to bubble out. I think he is comfortable to reload on the move that direction. It kind of feels like Mahomes a little bit, in the sense of he has that spatial awareness of where you're trying to attack, and he's going to go against the grain, and he's athletic enough to get there. So again, think that's a huge, huge, huge point. But the other thing that I really love about this offense, we'll talk about the run game. A clip will come up here in a second, but it's on time. Everything's on time. I think the biggest thing is that Jayden Daniels trusts his receivers. He trusts the offense. He trusts them to be in the right spot. They're doing a good job being in the right spot. And then their run game is killer. Brian Robinson potentially being out is massive. Here's Austin Eckler. The line does a great job in this one. They pull too. It's a pin and pull. The front side right guard is going to pull, and the center is going to pull. And you end up getting 4-on-4. And just look how calmly they navigate their blocks here and make that hole for Austin Eckler. He shakes Martin Emerson downfield a little bit. This is an explosive play. The Commanders on an EPA per play basis are averaging more EPA per rushing attempt than the Ravens. They're second behind the Ravens in yards before contact per carry and after contact. So after this long run, what do we see again? Have to attack the upfield shoulder. They don't do it. He ends up running for a first down there on third down and converting and back-to-back plays. So that was so much of this game is just trying to make him have to work back upfield and not letting him get to the sideline. He'll outrun pretty much any front seven player to the sideline there, and you can see him just skate for the first down marker. So I think that's a huge aspect. The run game was really impressive. Here, third down, big boy shit. Trust. Big, big, big trust. We see Louque McCaffrey, man coverage, third down a little bit later. Jayden fires it on time, hits the top of his drop back, fires it right to McCaffrey. McCaffrey makes a tough catch. De'Ami Brown here had a big touchdown last week. He's also wide open on the backside. So you could have gone either direction in man coverage there. You see De'Ami Brown work through in that window, clean pocket on third down, and can fire it through. And Jake, you made the comment of saying he doesn't look like a rookie. To me, that's what it is. He trusts. He trusts the offense. He trusts himself. He trusts his receivers to be in the right spot, and they are. That's why he's not a rookie quarterback. He also played a lot of college football. He is not some 21, 22-year-old. Bo Nix, playing winning football right now. Played a lot of college football. Seen a lot of defensive looks. Studied a lot of tape. Played in multiple offenses. So that is why it doesn't feel like these guys are rookies.
Yeah, no, it's like, as much as it's exciting that you see him play out of structure and when things are chaotic and he makes something happen, it's the playing within structure that I think has really impressed me. And like, you didn't really get a ton of that in that Bengals game, where it just felt like it was just full Mad Max Fury Road from both teams. Like, couldn't really sit back and watch him do a ton of that stuff. But I mean, even watching him, I think in that Bucks game early in the year, like, he was running around a lot and he didn't look super impressive, but he just seemed comfortable. Like, he seemed comfortable to drop back, go through his reads, try to play within Cliff Kingsbury's offense, which exactly, you make the point that that's not looking like a rookie. Like in Bo Nix's first couple games, it felt like every time he touched the ball, drop back, run diagonally backwards, and try to like make a play. And that's where we got that bad interception where the color guy was like, oh no, as soon as he let the ball go. Like, you're just not getting those types of plays from Jayden so far this year.
Yeah, and again, then you get back to it. Another free rusher, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, gets made to look silly because he doesn't attack the upfield shoulder, doesn't give his guys a chance to rally. I did the Lamar stopper, can't stop Jayden Daniels. He's a good player. He is a very good player. But then there's the whole commentary, I can't remember who. You've heard it throughout defensive players. We practice, the Ravens, we practice against Lamar Jackson. We're used to this kind of stuff. I don't think anybody can get used to it. I don't think there is a getting used to that kind of speed at the quarterback position. You think of Kyler Murray. who he might even actually, I'm not going to give Jayden the clear fastest quarterbacks. It might actually just be Kyler Murray. But those two guys, the speed, the pure speed, you're not going to get used to it. They're probably going to hurt you at some point. But again, attacking that upfield shoulder, giving your cavalry a chance to rally to the football and just make him feel you. Hit him a couple times. The Commanders have done a great job of protecting him. With that said, he scrambles more than any other quarterback by far. His rate of scrambling when pressured is double any other quarterback. When you pressure him, he runs. So it's easy to say, oh, well, we'll have a spy or we'll have a 2-layer rush and things of that nature. He's very fast. He's very, very, very fast. So a lot of that, I think, is trying to get pressure. You see what the Browns did. I feel like the Browns thought they could do what I'm describing, force him to come back and go the other way, and then he just does that Mahomes-like thing, and you can say the Lamar thing. It's really just any athletic quarterback where they know you are coming in so hot, too hot, and they can take that one step and go the other direction. They're big enough, strong enough, fast enough to get around you. So a lot of that. But this run game, to me, the timing of the offense and the run game are what have powered the Commanders. Austin Eckler's averaging 7 yards a carry. Brian Robinson is running into more heavy boxes and goal line stuff. He is a freight train. So if he can't go, I think that is very limiting. Jerry McNichols has had some nice moments in this offense too, but Robinson eats glass, man. I've always loved him. He reminds you of, Najee Harris, but probably a little more explosive. He can just pass protect. He can run straight through a mofo's face and go get tough yards. He broke a tackle down around the goal line and ended up scoring a touchdown. I think the Commanders got into like 2nd and 20, hand him the ball. He gets you like 15 yards back. Jayden Daniels converts. So 77% completion percentage. He trusts the offense. He can run. He can roll. To me, we looked at the sack Justin Madubuike had when we did the jumbo set earlier this week, and the Ravens stopped messing with coverage. They stopped trying to do the super disguise and rotate and all those things. Burrow knows it better than Jayden Daniels will. They've studied all offseason. They've played against it before. I would like to see Zach Orr and the Ravens defense play straight up early. I would like to see them play a little bit less chaotic early and then work it in so he can't catch a rhythm, start to ID, feel comfortable with the spot drop, things like that. Commanders have been outstanding in the second half. Second quarter really through the end of the game. They've started slow, and then it feels like he finds that rhythm. So I'd like to almost play 2 separate games against Jayden Daniels, the first being in the first half. Don't need to bring a ton of crazy pressure. If you do, let it be the rushers and one off-ball player, whether it's a slot, whether it's a Hamilton, a Smith, Simpson, one of those guys. Let it be like a 5-man game, but then keep it easy. Something else I noticed a lot, Terry McLaurin. I have criticized Cliff Kingsbury, not alone, a lot of other people, for not utilizing DeAndre Hopkins when he was in Arizona in motion, leaving him isolated. And they've moved Terry around more than he moved Hopkins around in Arizona, but you can still really see a simplified route tree for Terry. If he's isolated, it feels like the vast majority of the time he is just trying to foot race you. And a lot of times that's going to be Brandon Stevens on that right side. And Brandon Stevens makes a big play against T. Higgins. He's had, some good moments, some tough moments, all those kinds of things. EPA per target is like 20th best in the NFL among all coverage defenders, I believe, when I was looking at next gen stats.
He's just got to get his eye to the ball. It just feels like he's made those plays, but then he's also been in position to make these plays. And it's Devontae Adams mossing him when he's basically got him in a phone booth and making an incredible catch. We had a couple of those last week too. Feels like I feel like he's played better than he's being given credit for. And I get it because these catches are being made on him, but I don't know. I think he's off to a solid start.
He is. He's thrown like 220 yards a game and he's thrown 4 touchdowns, but their run game and him scrambling is what's beating teams to death. They've converted on big third downs. Again, I think they trust their offense. I think that they are all fully bought into what this offense is. How could you not be? If you're on the Commanders, if you're a player that's been there a couple of years, how could you not be super bought in right now, locked in and trusting what's going on as opposed to the offenses we've seen them trot out of the last couple of years?
Jonathan Allen sounds like Andy Dufresne after he escaped Shawshank. He just seems like the most stuff on social media, or maybe some like press conference comments where he was just like, I'm at my lowest point. I don't know how much further I can go on with this organization. And now this is happening. And he's just like so serene and so happy. Good for John Allen.
Yeah, good for Terry, good for John Allen, good for those guys that have been there a while. How could you not be fully bought in? But I can tell you, if McLaurin's isolated, he's probably pushing vertical. If he's in a bunch, he's probably running an in-breaker like a 7-step slant or a post. And if he is in the slot, he's running a slot fade. That's pretty much all they've done with him so far. It's very simple. Simple can be a good thing for a rookie quarterback. And then they run a lot of RPOs. I think they have a nice run game like we talked about. Interesting points made by Mina Kimes and Trevor Sikkema. Jake, you had that clipped, and would love to pull that up and then get into that discussion before we move to the other side of the ball.
The Ravens offense against the Commanders defense, what the Ravens are doing with their heavy personnel groupings right now, when they put multiple tight ends, backs on the field, I just don't know how the Commanders handle that. I mean, the Commanders versus 12 personnel, they almost exclusively play nickel 99% of the time this year. If you play the Ravens in nickel and 12, they are happy to run that ball down your throat. In fact, in 12 personnel, they are averaging 6 yards a carry and 0.24 EPA per play. I love their 12 personnel grouping so much because this year and last year, they are an even run pass split, and they're constantly putting defenses in compromised situations. But I think particularly running the ball out of those looks, is going to be a huge problem for Washington.
Yeah, I agree. And it was an intriguing note of Washington's draft class when they drafted Dominique Hampton and Tyler Owens, who are sort of these bigger, really good athlete, safety / linebacker hybrid prospects, because they draft both of those guys after also signing Jeremy Chin. You have these hybrid players to do exactly what you're talking about, right? Where the Ravens, when they want to go heavy personnel and pass out of the heavy personnel, you'd be able to put multiple safety / linebacker hybrid players into the game to be okay at run defense, but then also a plus in coverage about how you go about covering these guys. Unfortunately, they are still late drafted rookies. They're not going to play a big part of this game plan for them this year. So you could kind of see the vision from Dan Quinn, but those guys aren't ready yet. And instead, I think that you're right. I think the Ravens, at least on the ground, are going to have their way with the Commanders.
And so I think Mina brings up the 12 personnel. You think of Ricard, you think of Likely, Kohler's come on strong, Andrews looks great last week, makes big plays. There's two options to me at this point, and the Bengals showed option one, which was to sell out against the run, stack the box, try to penetrate with your linebackers, and they did effectively clog up the run game until the very end, right? Derrick Henry has the big run at the end, ends up finishing with 92 yards. What was that, a 50-yard run? So the vast majority of his yardage came outside of the first 4 quarters. And I always end up saying the same thing. He did run for the 50 yards. He did hit the big play. You can't just say one play. Deebo Samuel has like one catch right now for 75 yards and a touchdown, but he had the one catch for 75 yards and a touchdown. So you can take that route. You can say, okay, we're going to take the run game away as effectively as we can, make it as difficult as possible. The Commanders don't have a better secondary than the Bengals do. It's like similar groups. Benjamin St-Juste has had a tough year, someone that I did like, very raw. Coming out, he's a big 6'3", 6'4" corner. He's had a tough go. This is maybe an oversimplified way to look at it, but I clicked on total snaps played by Commanders defenders in PFF, and PFF grades, people debate about them. I think it's better than the average fan's take on an individual player, though. Benjamin St-Juste, 58 grade. Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louque, who play all the time, but they're 2 linebackers, 82 and 71. Of the remaining players that have played over 100 snaps, no one else has a 70-plus grade. Louvu and Wagner are the only players that PFF thinks is playing good football consistently through 5 weeks.
Mike Sainristil starting opposite St-Juste has 55.4 if what I'm looking at right now is accurate.
Sainristil plays in the slot a bit. They have Noah Igbogine, who I liked a lot. He's had a tough go a little bit. When you go look at
Igbogine, I think.
I've always said Igbogine or Igbogine, something like that.
I just love pronouncing that name. So of
course. So they don't have a lot. The other player that's played well is Dorrance Armstrong, exclusively as a pass rusher. He's been really disruptive. The difference between the Bengals, for example, and the Commanders, it's Dan Quinn. We talked about last week. Cole came on here and said the Bengals are not looking to penetrate. They're looking to keep their gap, and they'd struggled with that. They knew they struggled with that, so they had backers be more aggressive in that, and it worked against the run. But on the back end, Bobby Wagner, God bless his heart, I wanted him here in Baltimore for sure. He is not the athlete he once was. He's still a very good, effective player. He's a good run defender, all those things. Lamar Jackson's an issue for him. Louvu, a nice player. Jeremy Chin, who Mina and Trevor brought up, is someone that's really intriguing. He is in that Kyle Hamilton build. He is not the Kyle Hamilton aggressor, and I'll say the processing and the IQ and the aggression are not there. And that's what makes him not Kyle Hamilton at all. It's, a third round pick versus a top pick, top safety in his draft class. But they do have kind of some of those guys. So my question is, what are you going to do, Dan Quinn? Are you going to load the box, take away the run game, and hope your secondary can hold up? Because they can't. So to me, if I'm the Commanders, I think this is the best thing to do against the Ravens at this point in time, where we are in week 5, is to let them run a little. Let them run. Don't go out of your mind trying to stop the run, because I think Lamar Jackson will still just tear you up. And we saw that. It was easy. They made it easy for Lamar Jackson by doing that. I would rather make it a little easier on Derrick Henry than a lot easier on Lamar Jackson. I think these receivers, I think these tight ends, I think Justice Hill in the pass game.
That's the thing. Like, they can throw out of 12 too. I mean, like, Charlie Kohler is going on a nationwide press tour right now because of what, the Bengals approached last week. Like, he had a couple big catches and a touchdown. That was the biggest game of his career. And he's a talented player now. And all of a sudden, everyone's talking about how Mark Andrews is washed. Well, I got bad news for you, rest of the league. Likely is legit, and Kohler is starting to look good too. And then obviously you got to account for Pat Ricard too. So it's like, you can talk about these, personnel packages and mix-ups and trying to stuff the run. But like you said, if you overcommit to that, they can still throw out of those personnel packages too. So
most certainly Lamar can run. We talk so much about Jayden Daniels running. He's not Lamar Jackson still as a runner also. So that's what I expect. I would rather try to make the Ravens go the long, hard way and see if you can get lucky, get a holding call, force a fumble, see what you can do, because letting Zay Flowers, we covered the releases that he had, the speed that he had. Commies don't have a guy either. They don't have a guy on the back end that can hang with that. Rashad Bateman getting so much separation. He's coming into his own. Isaiah Likely's an issue. So I think that the Bengals showed that is an idea worth exploring. They explored it. What happened? Can the Commanders execute it more effectively? I don't think so. I do not think so. They have played light boxes. That is death. So I think it's maybe playing cover 3, playing middle of the field closed coverages, more underneath zones, trying to make the Ravens throw up the seams, seeing if you can just get a bad throw, get that play, get off the field, but you have to do it a lot. The Ravens are going to score points. The tight ends are going to get buckets. The receivers are going to make their 5 to 15 plays, depending on the game script. Ravens offense is rolling. I do think that the Ravens do have the greatest rushing attack in NFL history right now. I do. I think it's the best I've ever seen in my life. And I think it's a large part because of Lamar Jackson. I think it's a large part because of the foundation that Greg Roman laid down for a few years, and Todd Monken being able to adapt that game plan instead of impose his will. He can recognize what you're doing, and it feels like be more strategic maybe than a Roman was. And Lamar, we talked about Jayden Daniels. He saw a lot in college. Well, Lamar Jackson's seen a lot in the NFL. The cover zero shit isn't killing him. The slot pressures aren't killing him. It's not. There's no answer right now. What is the answer? The Chiefs are the only ones who have, I think, the talent on top of scheme that we've seen so far to really limit this Ravens offense. I think Lamar was banged up in that Raiders game, like we talked about in the jumbo set. A couple stupid things happened in that game offensively. They got in some weird situations, and I think they learned from that very much. So I think they do have the best rushing attack in NFL history. Now, today, they have been probably of our lifetime, our adult life, the best rushing attack over a sustained period of years. They've led the NFL in rushing multiple times. They haven't had Derrick Henry. We're watching it happen. The questions that people had, can Derrick Henry run out of gun? Can he run out of pistol as opposed to straight out of under center? Yes, he can. Justice Hill is doing a damn good job too. So this offensive line with McCary over there now, an experienced player between Stanley and Linderbaum, feels good. Feels good over there. And then we're seeing Daniel Faalele try to figure it out. I tweeted earlier today, like it felt like month 1 was just suck in September. He did, and stop sucking as much in October. And then hopefully in November, he's able to realize, oh, I'm 7 feet tall, 800 pounds. I'm Andre the Giant. I can kill people. I can crush.
I love that trap block you and Cole were talking about, where he basically tripped over his own feet and just washed a guy out of a play by accident. Like, Let's harness that a little bit, and you got yourself something there, Daniel.
Did you notice, Daniel, that when you lunged forward with low pad level, you wiped a human off the earth? Did you notice that when you tripped? It's like ironic, but I think you look at it and you're like, see? Do you see? Hey, you can attack these guys. You're so big, they have to get around you. So play to your size, play to your ability. I don't know if anyone on Earth
here from Uncle Chad. Did you get your
I ordered it about 5 days ago. It should be here for hopefully the next home game after this. Yes, I'll be wearing my Big Dan jersey. So, yeah, Roger Rosengarten, a little banged up. He's been playing well in terms of the pass rush, but I don't know. I don't know how you stop the Ravens with this group if you're the Commanders. Dan Quinn, a hell of a defensive coordinator. I think they'll figure it out on the back end over time, but I'm not trying to leave this back seven, so to speak, alone. The secondary alone. I'm not trying to do what the Bengals did. We just watch it not work. Now you're going to be in the Ravens' house. It's going to be quieter. They're going to be able to orchestrate more cleanly and probably have less, little fumble issues with snaps and stuff like that. Somebody said, I don't know who tweeted it. Somebody was like, Lamar Jackson might be the worst quarterback at just like catching snaps ever. The two things
it's a good point. I mean, Jesus Christ. Do you remember in 2020 with Skura, some of those just balls that were flying over his head? I mean, those aren't even his fault, but there's plenty others too. It's
not even just his fault. It's just it's a thing. The quarterback sneaking is bad, and I think that he does. He fumbles some snaps. He fumbled too. Not even just the one. Wasn't the one in overtime. He also tripped, fall, dropped the one where he ends up making the likely play.
Yeah, I mean, great soundbite from Cam Newton way back in the day. Like, he was like, "Why ain't I on the hands team? I have the best hands on the team. I catch the ball every play on the snap." And like, I think about that sometimes with Lamar. Lamar would not be on the hands team in this scenario. No matter how dynamic your kickoffs get, he's not going out there.
How has he not caught a pass yet? Like, Joe Flacco's caught passes. Nick Foles
Jared Goff just made a defense look silly. I mean, with the nonchalance with which he caught a touchdown pass, I feel like Lamar, come on, Uncle Todd.
Zamboni said, Lamar said he was too worried about a possible delay game. Not sure I buy it. I did see, I think on NFL Network, they showed that play just as part of the highlight package or whatever. And it did look like as the ball was almost in his hands, he looked up directly at where the clock would have been. I do buy it.
He did the same thing on the overtime play. He was not looking at the ball. Everyone was like, "Oh, he didn't secure it." It's like he was not looking at it. And that's another thing. Let's get to the line a little quicker here, just to facilitate
especially at home.
Ball. Yeah, oh yeah. That's a non-negotiable this week. Yeah.
Non-negotiable there is the perfect way to put it. So, man, what are you going to do, Dan Quinn? Are you going to do what the Bengals did, or are you going to do what, let's say, the Bills? I mean, the Bills came out of their nickel, and dime that they exclusively use and still got torched. I would say that the Bills have a more talented defense than the Commanders do, a better system that's been in place longer, I'd say, and they got ran over too. So I don't know what the answer is. Again, if I'm them, I'm trying to make it easier on Derrick Henry and harder on Lamar Jackson. If you don't make the game hard on Lamar Jackson, he's just going to beat you over the head. He's just going to bludgeon you. So cover three. And that's Dan Quinn's specialty, playing kind of that base cover three a little bit. He's changed, mixed it up. I would go back to that. See if you can take your lumps in the run game. Hopefully not. If you're the Commanders, let up a long run. But that's kind of what I expect from Dan Quinn. Kind of a little bit of middle ground between, let's say, the Bills and the Bengals. A little bit of that middle ground, see what you can do. I don't think they're going to be able to stop the Ravens without just stupid drops, fumbles, a little bit of luck, shit like that, which happens all the time. Any given Sunday, Al Pacino made a whole speech about inches and clawing and fighting and all that good stuff. So I don't know. Tendency-wise, I didn't look at the Commanders' defense as much as I looked at their offense, but they like to rush four. They like to play light boxes. And they want to help their DBs who aren't very good. The playbook was in the drawers. Cole's here. The playbook was in the drawers. Cole's such a coward for not just joining us. He has the link too. I'm pretty sure he can just hop in.
No, he's too busy, photoshopping pictures of himself in the Louvre with Uncle Todd there.
The Louvre is spelled exactly how Cole likes it, as he puts Ravens -23 favorites here in his Canadian lingo.
Yeah, I wonder what color jerseys are the Ravens going to wear on Sunday? Do we know?
Favorites. They are wearing purple with white.
It's purple and white. Yeah, I know. I just wanted to I want to get a color with a U, jab it.
Color. The playbook's in his drawers. What color is the favorites?
Playbook's in his drawers. How's he going to get it out?
How's he going to get it out of his drawers to call it playing time? So, yeah, I mean, I've been saying it a long time. I am sketched out, I will say, by the fact that everyone's like, we watched the Ravens beat the crap out of the Dolphins and the 49ers and the Bills and the Seahawks and the Lions. I'm a little sketched out by that. It feels a little too comfortable to just default to that.
So does the 22-1 versus the NFC thing. I totally get it, and it does make sense on paper because these teams are only seeing him 4 times a year, and like it's hard to adjust for. But it's starting to get good on hearing that every time he plays an NFC team.
I'm not good on it. I love it. He's never lost one at home. We'll knock on actual wood here. Never lost an NFC team at home, right? So I think the Ravens, I guess we can kind of roll into predictions here. I do think the Ravens win this one. I think that you can take away Terry McLaurin if you want to. I think, like I said, and I'll revert back to that PFT, Mike Florio, Chris Sims conversation. I think you can tell what they're trying to do. But doing it on time makes it hard to stop. But that doesn't apply to Terry as much. And again, it has been 4 deep balls that they've connected on. So if I'm the Commanders, and this is the basic thing, I've already said this. If I'm the Commanders, I'm like, on offense, I'm like, well, the Ravens want me to throw the ball over the middle field, and I don't like to throw the ball over the middle field. Already, you got to come out of your preference. They like to spray it to the outside. Ravens are designed to not make you. So I would look at Jamar Chase being lined up in the slot as a number 1 or number 2 in the slot and try and attack the middle of the field, try and attack over top that way. If you want your big plays, Marcus Williams has been struggling. I would like to see Kyle Hamilton play safety in this game as opposed to Eddie Jackson. I would like the big athletic playmaker on the back end a little bit more than we've seen him. And then the conversation is, well, then you don't have him up by the line of scrimmage to deal with the Jayden Daniels in the run game. Not every play. And if you run middle of the field close stuff, you can rotate him down. He's in the box. He can fit from the backside, all that good stuff. But I would like to see Trenton Simpson on the field a lot in this one, almost the whole game. Kyle Hamilton play a little bit more safety, a little less Eddie Jackson. We'll see what happens with Marlon Humphrey's injury. That can kind of limit what you want to do. That puts our Darius Washington on the field, which is fine. He's an aggressive dude. I think he hits and makes plays. So that's what I'm looking towards. But I do think the Commanders aren't going to score, in my opinion, more than 20 or 24 points in this game. I think they can score maybe 2 touchdowns offensively, kick a couple field goals. Maybe they can make a big play on special teams or something else and score a 3rd touchdown and make it like 24 or 27. But Ravens offense, like I said, I think the run game is the best in NFL history in this iteration of what the Ravens are doing. And the Commanders have a big problem on their hands. I think the Ravens can score 4 or 5 touchdowns in this game. I think the Ravens score in the 30s. The Commanders score in the 20s. I'll call it 36-24.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to, I'll go pretty similar. I think the Ravens cover the spread here. I think the offense generally keeps it humming, maybe a couple sputters here and there, but I've got the Ravens scoring 26 points in this game. I have the Commanders scoring at 19, so a little 26-19 there. I think in honor of Dean Pease coming through, 3 field goals from the Commanders. They will bend, but they will not break.
That is a huge point. I'm glad you said that. That is a huge point in this game. Jayden Daniels did throw a pick down in the goal to go last week. And again, if Brian Robinson's out, he is their thumper in goal to go and short yardage. He is a badass glass eater. So if they don't have him, I think it's a big deal. And yeah, I think that the Ravens can get it done. Cliff Kingsbury, I don't buy it. I think that the Commanders are, like I said, just so excited about not being in complete ineptitude that they are fully bought in. That probably continues. And they don't care if they lose, right? 4-2 is fine. Losing to the MVP, the 2-time MVP, the reigning MVP, the really good Ravens in their house is not the end of the world. They would love to prove that they are the actual big bad dog. Those are all fun narrative talking points. It's just interesting. There's just a little cheese in the mouse. Everybody thinks like it's being mentioned nationally. The Ravens blow teams up in these spots. I don't know. It feels a little fishy in that regard, but I'm gonna take the cheese here. I'm gonna take the 6.5 point spread. I'm gonna take all of that cheese. You've seen your receivers just making plays. Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers, Tylan Wallace making plays for you, right? That feels like unstoppable to me a little bit. We'll see if they can do it 2 weeks in a row, 3 weeks in a row, I guess. The Bills, they trumped 2 offensively. So yeah, Jake and I, we have it, buddy. We have a big Ravens win. Hopefully that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely. That would get them to 4-2. We'll see what happens around the rest of the division, but that would obviously be a huge win for the Ravens. So yeah, definitely we'll be happy to see it. I will be in the bank on Sunday. Very excited to get out to my first game of the year, actually, which is weird that we're already in week 6. Haven't had the chance to get out to one yet, but yeah, hopefully it's a good one for Uncle Jakey in the house. Anything else before we get on out of here?
Like and subscribe. Appreciate everybody. We're doing a giveaway October 31st. If you find my tweet that is pinned and you show that you are subscribed on YouTube in a screenshot and retweet the tweet. I'm going to give away a Derrick Henry jersey and looking to build this channel up. Jake, you and I put in a lot of work on the Baltimore Beatdown channel a couple years ago, and we've had our moments on this channel, but we're trying to surge throughout this season, grow this thing into something fun where the boys can rumble, have fun, make this into a bigger entity. So we'd appreciate your support. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff. We appreciate you guys. And hopefully we're talking to you on Sunday after a big Ravens win.
Tell a friend too. Word of mouth. Nothing better than that. We appreciate you guys listening very much. Like Spenny said, please go ahead and throw us a like and a subscribe if you haven't already. Follow us on social media at Exit52 Podcast on X. I am at Jake Louque. That's Louque. Spenny at Ravens4Dummies. That is the number 4 in the middle there. Brian at Barstool Banks. Eric at EDITTI22. Taylor at Taylor Smythe 10. Thanks to our guys at Jimmy's Famous Seafood. Thanks to Clipper City Barber. Thank you to Black Eyed Susan Spices, Fed Thrill Sunglasses, all the big hitters in there. We appreciate you all very much as well. And until next time, guys, we will talk to you.
See ya.
Arrivederci.